Hey y'all, I'm Mike, the RV inspector and technician,
And I'm Elizabeth. I run our business.
and welcome to the Cozy Camper Podcast. Hey Tom.
Hey, Mike, how goes it?
Goes well, man. Welcome everybody to the podcast. We're laughing because we've actually been talking for about 30 minutes.
This will be our second one today.
Yeah, and we didn't have the sound on, so we're starting all over again. So we got the bad one out of the way. Tom, you are. This is hilarious. I have deja vu.
Yeah.
So you're we were joking, a rival RV inspector technician, but you're down in San Antonio. You're getting ready to go out to Florida. You're moving your business. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, he's another professional. He's not going to steal my business anymore. We can have him in to talk about his business and what he's experienced. So how'd you get to San Antonio? Well, first, how did you get into this business? And kind of what are your next steps?
Okay. Well, so I got into this business by pure just happenstance. It just kind of happened to us. I retired from the Marines. I did 22 years, and then I retired back in last year in 2024. And about 2 months before I retired, my sister, she was getting married, so I went up to New York. And I'm always the designated driver because I don't usually drink. If I have 2 or 3 drinks a year, that's a lot for me. And I'm driving my sisters to where we were staying, and I'm going straight road, middle of the night, going 50 to 55, and something failed on the car and put us into a phone pole. Yeah. I walked away I had a bruise from the seatbelt. My sisters weren't as lucky; they ended up in the hospital, but everybody's fine. And when I got home, my wife Cassandra and I spoke, and she had a really successful furniture refinishing business in South Florida, and it was always the plan to just continue
Are y'all
that.
from there originally?
No, we're not from Florida originally. I'm originally from upstate New York.
Okay.
And then my wife, she grew up in Delaware.
Okay.
I was stationed in Delaware for a bit, and that's where we met. Moved to Maryland, moved to Pennsylvania, all for work,
Right.
and then moved to Florida, and that's where I ended up retiring. Was in Florida, and we were going to pursue that custom furniture refinishing business because she loved to paint, and I loved to help her out.
Yeah.
Right. But we spoke about it, and after the accident, it just felt like, well, if something like that can happen and you're doing what you think are all the right things,
Right.
And in the blink of an eye, that can all change. Lucky enough that it didn't, but the potential was there.
Right.
We just
You saw the light.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It was actually sparking above me when we hit the pole, so I definitely saw the light. And we decided that life's just too short to be working for someone or to be trying to make a mortgage payment.
Right.
Or just doing the daily grind, right? Even if you're not totally in the rat race, everybody still has a foot in it somewhere.
Right. Even if
So-
you're a business owner, you're always worried about the next sale.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So we had never even spent a night in an RV. We sold everything, bought a big truck, ordered a Brinkley, went and looked at a couple things, ordered a Brinkley.
Which one did you get?
We got a 3610.
Nice.
Yep. We got a 3610. And it was really weird. We upgraded to a smaller bed.
On your
I
truck.
don't know.
in
the Brinkley.
camper, yeah.
So it was an upgrade to go from a king to a queen. I don't know how the math works out there, but
Don't ask any questions.
yeah, don't ask any questions. Go with it. I enjoy it. I have nightstands now. But we did that. Closed on the house. 2 days later, took delivery of the
The brink.
Yeah, became a Brinkler. And then started our trip. And Cassandra and I had talked, and I've been really handy for a long time. We've renovated homes. I mean, from
The
Florida.
Marine Corps will make you be handy.
Well, yeah, I can definitely fit 50 pounds of stuff in a 40-pound backpack.
Yeah.
I do know how to do that,
Yeah.
right? And I always know that the Marine Corps prepared me to know that I could have always done it better. So that's something that is stuck with me. I have a hard time sitting down as well.
Yeah.
But we had redone homes, like I said, Florida ceiling, everything in between, plumbing, electrical, air conditioning, all the stuff. And I felt really comfortable with it. And I told Cassie, I said, hey, when you make a house go 65, 70, and you put a battery on it, I don't know nothing. Yeah. So I need to go to school for this so that we can, that I can take care of things, or I
Right.
could at least explain to somebody, hey, this is what's going on. Found out that the VA pays for it.
And that's you went to NRVTA.
And I went to the NRVTA. Yeah, free's the best price. So
Freeze for me.
Freeze for me. So went out there, started the classes, and realized that things are very much the same, but very much different in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Right? And we kind of decided, well, we could do this. How I ended up here was we were like, okay, we're going to go to, we left school. Hey, we're heading to Colorado. Going to check it out. But we wanted to see San Antonio in case we wanted to winter there. So instead of going right, we went left and ended up going south. And we got here and just kind of planted our feet.
Yeah. Easy to do.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very easy to do. And we've been here, oh, gosh, I don't know, 9-10 months.
Yeah. Because we met last year like at the end of the winter.
Yes, at the breakfast.
Yeah, we went to the inspector breakfast, and I met y'all there. And it was like, we were talking earlier, like it was clear to me that I was like, oh, these guys are way better at marketing than most people that come into this space are. Most people are very reliant on like the like sort of
like the tech locator,
the locators,
yep.
and then like you can buy like a basic website from like one of the vendors through the school.
Yes, I agree with the term basic.
Yeah, it's very basic. It's not optimized for search engine, but it's visually pretty. And
yes,
but I don't know how helpful it is at actually marketing your business. But it's like y'all came in, and I was like, oh, I'm like, those guys are different. Like I know it immediately when someone comes in, and they're different. Like I can tell there's a inspector technician team like up in the Georgetown area right now.
Okay.
I'm like, oh, they're different. It's like two friends or their brothers or something, and I'm like, oh, they're marketing very well. They're doing very well up there. And like y'all came in, and I was like, oh, y'all are different. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of people that are good at what they do, but I'm like, y'all are also good at presenting yourselves and marketing, which is huge. And it goes a long way. And then no shame, but y'all copied my RV inspector locator profile with the light boxes.
It's
and
different
stuff.
colors.
Yeah, it was
it's
different colors.
It's different colors.
But
It
no,
doesn't say
but like,
the same thing.
honestly,
No, you gave me the idea for that. I saw that. I'm like, what did Mike do? How did he do this? So I went into it. I'm like, oh, I can do that.
Yeah, easy.
So,
I just
yeah.
use Canva, and I right, and like it's easy to do, but like, and people, there is a. Let me tell you the story. So there's all these like people that they sell marketing services, and you can like learn how to go viral, and and so somebody who's close to the NRVTA has a son-in-law who's like a marketing coach.
Okay.
And he was like, hey, go check out his Instagram and his website. And I was like, sweet, I'll do that. And I was gonna hire them, and then it was $2,000 a month to have
A month?
Yes, a month to do it. And I was like, well,
We're in the wrong job.
yeah, I know, right? I was like, but we're not there yet. Well, it starts at 2,000.
Oh, that's for basic.
Yeah.
Couple minutes of my time.
And I was like, oh, well, how about instead I just look at their Instagram and I analyze what they're doing. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what they do. So I took some ideas from them, and I
applied
it. There was one the other day. This viral coach was talking about how they have a formula to go viral, and I was like, what's the formula? And they're like, oh, just pay my class. And so I just went and I watched their video, and it was the same over and over again, right? It was a hook, suspense, reward. And so I was like, okay, so every single video, whether it's me starting by saying like, you won't believe what we found, or I do some ridiculous thing in the beginning, hook, suspense, reward, over and over again. And so I was like, okay, I'll just steal that idea without paying for it, and I'll apply it to my own business. That's what marketing is.
Yep.
Like there are a couple people that have told me, I saw you on Instagram. I went to NRVTA. I'm going to do what you do. And I watched them take exactly my style of video and tailor it for themselves. And I'm like, sweet.
Right.
I was like, sweet.
Glad I could help.
I was like, I'm so glad I could help. That's what all marketers do is like, yeah, at some point you come up with a creative idea, but 90% of it is like you take a little from this guy and a little from that guy, and you make it work. Like actually you posted the other day, it was such a simple thing. You were like, hey, I did an inspection on XYZ, and you posted a picture, I think, of the hydraulic pump with like red arrows about all the things you found. And I was like, what am I thinking about all this stuff for? I'm like, why don't I just do that? I already have the photo because it's in the report.
Yep.
I was like, I'll just screen cap and put it there. I'm like, that's such a good idea. Because that was
I took
actually
a second photo. I didn't use the photo that was in the
Fair.
report just because somebody somebody else had paid for that.
You don't
So
want
I
to. Yeah,
took-
you don't want to. You don't want to. The report belongs to them,
the
right?
report
So,
belongs to them. That's
but,
right.
Yeah. But no, I was like, that's such. It's so simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's another Instagram page I follow. Dude only has 400 followers, but literally all he does is just post like 3 pictures of whatever job it is he's doing that day. So here's the awning broken. Here's the awning
Here's
off.
me working on
Here's
it.
the
Here's-
awning fixed, and
Yep.
he puts some music over it. And then he's busy all day and all night because that's like his portfolio. So if somebody wants to hire him, he can go look at that. And I saw y'all come in, and I was like, oh, there's someone, they care. I was like, they're different. They care. This is their career. They treat it like an industry. So you're staying on base in San Antonio.
Yes, at Fort Sam Houston.
And
Yeah.
you got the market cornered a little bit in that little.
Well, I'm already there, right? There's nobody that needs to come out and charge whatever they would charge for coming out.
No verification at the post.
Sure. So like somebody doesn't have to you don't have to say, oh, I don't know you, but I'm going to sponsor you on to
Yeah.
work on my RV, right? I'm right there.
Because
And-
accountability sucks when you don't know who you're being
Sure.
accountable for.
Sure. And I do half off my service charge. I give a discount to the veterans.
'Cause
You
you're
know,
in
some
the-
of them they just have their retirement and Social Security, right? And you try not to have a bleeding heart because you're still a business,
Yeah.
right? But you can make you can make provisions for people, and it's kept me very busy. I mean, I can
Right.
be busy 5 days a week. My wife
Well-
has to say, "Hey, Tom."
Cool it.
Yeah.
If you take care of those clients that really don't have a lot of money, but you do it in a responsible way, like you can't work for free.
Right. Oh, responsible to them and your business.
Exactly.
Right.
You have to be responsible. So it's like, yeah, I'll give you a discount, veteran discount, But then those people are going to be your best ambassadors because they're going to go tell 100 people. But I always tell them, I'm like, don't tell anybody about
Yeah.
the discount. Those like, for me, my weakness, if you remind me of my mom or my grandma, like, dude, I'll work for free. And like Elizabeth has to be like, we are charging them, right? Like we do have to charge them something.
Sure.
And but then like those, I can think of one person that Elizabeth was so mad because I fixed I installed a fan motor on an air conditioner for just the cost. I'm sure you've replaced fan motors. It sucks. It's kind of a pain, especially if it's hot. And I did it for basically the cost of the part.
Okay.
And she came back and she was like, hey, God bless you for doing that. But it was 4 hours that you were gone with travel and actually installing the thing.
Sure.
She's like, it would have been nice to have made an hour. And I was like, okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
But-
that's your time.
Right.
That's everybody's time too. That's time that the family gave up with you. That's
Yes.
your time where you could be doing something. Like there's a lot of value
You
there.
do have to be responsible. Like what I just described is unreasonable. And Elizabeth was correct to be like, hey, you can't really do it.
Right.
Stop. But you can do that a little, like you were saying, like, oh yeah, I give discounts. Like in the park, we do half off. Like when we stay in an RV park, we do half off the service fee,
Exactly the same.
and we don't enforce a 1 hour minimum. Everywhere else we go, we enforce, like even if I'm there for 2 minutes, it's a service fee and a 1 hour minimum because you have to protect. Well, I drove here. It took me
Right. Oh yeah.
like I had to not schedule somebody else to get here.
Diesel's not cheap.
No, it is not. And it's not as bad as it has been, but it's still a cost.
Oh yeah.
And people will, everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to help.
Sure.
And we've talked before about, how do we do that? Like, should we, start a 501 and, solicit money and put it to the side? Like, how do we, because, we feel bad because, sometimes people will call us and, it's like, we had somebody once, she's a single mom, her kid's disabled. And I was I went over and I did something for just parts. And I was like, okay, I can do that. But then they almost sometimes have that expectation of you that you're going to do it for just parts. And it kind of blows up in your face. Because then they're mad and they're going to tell other people that you're mad. So with everything else in life, it's, and with them, I had actually had a manufacturer that was going to give me a bunch of parts.
Oh.
And I was like, hey, if this works out, and I had organized a couple of technicians, I was like, if I can get this stuff, we will come and we will do it. We'll film it. We'll make it a feel-good thing, and everyone's a winner.
Sure.
The manufacturer, whoever was working social media, got fired. The next person wasn't.
Oh.
They didn't get fired for that, but whoever was working in their marketing department, there was a changeover. The new person wasn't interested.
Sure.
And that went away. And that wasn't me. I was totally into doing it. But do you think that client was mad at the manufacturer or were
Oh,
they mad
no.
at Mike?
No. Well, you were the face
Exactly.
of what was going
And
on.
I was like,
so-
I would love to do this for you. And Elizabeth finally had to call and be like, you need to stop. Like, it's over. We can't help you. So all that to say that, like, yes, you should, like, take care of people. Sounds like you're right on, but, like, you do have to kind of be careful too, because sometimes those are the folks that, like, that you can get burned is what I'm trying
Oh,
to
yeah.
say. You can get burned when you're trying to take care of people. And I hate to say it, but it does happen.
No, there's a balance. There's an absolute balance, and I saw a lot of that too in my past career.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people you invested the most into were the ones that hurt you the most.
Right.
Right.
We used to say 90 or 10% of your guys take up 90% of your time.
Yep.
And that was like when because I was a sergeant in the police department, so I had
Okay.
my crew, and like one or two guys would burgle all of my time. Oh my gosh. And you know, they were in questionable uses of force, or they were right on the edge of policy, and or they weren't following directive, and you're spending like 6-8 hours dealing with this guy who won't listen. Get down, buddy. Dog interruption. Get down. He doesn't have anything for you. So you're dealing with that guy who.
You just need some lovin's. Is that
This
what's
is
going
Linus
on?
the dog. Hey, buddy, get down. Come on. Get down. You're dealing with those folks instead of. Here, come on. Lay down. Oh, hang on. Stop. I know what's happening.
Oh, gotta go out.
It's basically like a burglar alarm traumatized him like 5 years ago. There's a
Oh.
bell outside that rings, and he thinks it's the same thing. So I'll just I'll just play with him here.
No, that's
So yeah, we were saying that, like, we're back. Dog problems. So this has been like the pod from hell, man. So important to not have a traumatized dog and press the record button.
Yeah, record is a very important
It is.
feature.
But yeah, like, so in the same way that those guys like will take up a huge amount of your time, sometimes taking care of people in the field take up a lot of your time, and that sucks because like you want to help them.
Sure.
You want to, you just can't always. But other times they're your greatest ambassadors.
They absolutely can be in the right
Yeah.
circumstance, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Because like I did an inspection for someone once. She called us and she's like, I'm a grandma, and you know my husband passed away, and we're moving on to my granddaughter's land, and I don't have a lot of money, and can you come do this inspection for me? And we gave her like half off the inspection, which I never do. I never do that. And
So that's the half off story for
That's-
the listeners out there.
yeah, that's the half off story. But I never do that. But she was so grateful, and that RV was a wreck. She was so grateful, and she became like our biggest ambassador, and she reminded me of my grandma. So it was totally fine. I was happy to do it, but that's it's tough, like, because particularly in this space, you know, like you're kind of the sort of the archetype of people who come into this space. Like, there's a lot of vets who come into the RV business ownership space because of that. The VA pays, and
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
there's tons and tons, and I think it's great. It can be hard though if you are only used to hierarchy, and you come in and like now you're just cut loose, bro, and you got to make all your own decisions, and there is no SOP. That's tough, and yeah, obviously not. I mean, maybe it is tough for you, but evidently y'all have overcome it.
Yes, I've moved on.
Yeah. Well, your wife had business experience, and
Well, I think maybe we both had a little unfair advantage. So she was a supervisory paralegal for the Fed. So she was into everything, has incredible attention to detail, understands people, definitely understands the legal side and how to.
which is huge.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, we
she's,
we pay somebody a lot every month to make sure we don't go to prison.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I.
I don't want to go to prison.
Yeah. No, I don't do that. That's what I have. And for the technicians out there, they'll understand. I call her my Cassie Wample because she is the biggest tool for our business.
Don't call her a tool, bro.
No. Well.
That's brutal.
When I say tool, I don't mean in that sense. I mean for the amount of work that she's able to accomplish and the value that she brings to the
Right.
table. So, and then myself, I spent my last 14 years actually on recruiting duty. So I worked
For the Marines?
for the Marines. So interpersonal communication skills, marketing and advertising, contracts for individuals. So I touched all those pieces. And that put me in a position perhaps to be a little more personable, to understand the human dynamic and human dimension when it comes to talking to people and really where needs live,
Right.
right? Because some people give you an objection, or and that objection is really a need that they might not even know or understand.
Correct.
It's
Might be
it's
fear.
it could be fear. It's
Right.
exploring that objection to really understand, and really for them to understand
Yeah.
what the concern is.
The one of the hardest part for people, like particularly with inspections, you're really doing a lot of sales because people don't understand what an inspection really is and what really goes into it and why it costs that much. And so, like, you're going into sales, and one of the hardest parts of sales is overcoming the objection, right? And everybody has one. It's maybe they don't understand the value, or maybe it's just too damn much money.
Could be.
And and learning how to overcome that objection. If you were in recruiting, right, like, and I was recruiting adjacent, it's like, well, do you want to do X? No. Why? Maybe I'm afraid of deployment. Maybe I don't think I'm up to it, right? Maybe I'm worried my parents will judge me.
I heard.
Yeah, I heard this.
I heard.
And because I used to do it for the PD, and my whole pitch was like, yeah, we're a smaller agency, but that gives you an opportunity to stand out because you instead of being one of 5,000, you're one of 100.
Sure.
So that's a huge opportunity. Well, I heard you guys don't do this, and you guys don't do that, and like, yeah, but we get paid more. So it's all about overcoming the objection. Take it easy, buddy. It's all about overcoming the objection. And when you have roles like that, like you were in the recruiting, so that's all you did was like
for the
talk
last
to people.
14 years was talk to people, and then it evolved to teaching the people that talk to people.
Right. Same. I was in training when I left, and if, like, let's say you're an electronics technician in the Navy on a submarine, right? Like, maybe that makes you awesome at diagnosing electrical things, but it's like Office Space, right? Like, I talk to the people so the engineers don't have to. That's real.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's real. Like, somebody can be amazing at their job, and dude, you're making this like the worst podcast of all time. You can be like amazing at your job, but you suck at communication.
Sure.
And it doesn't come easy to everybody. It does seem like it comes easier to y'all.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that on our previous podcast that wasn't recorded.
40 minutes ago.
That there's different people in our space, and it was one of the things I used to talk about because I used to train trainers, and they'd think, well, he won't do this or she can't perform like that. I said, well, not everybody drives in the left lane.
Right.
Right. There's some people that they can only go 55.
Yes.
And that's not a hit on them.
No.
That's who they are, and
Yes.
that's okay. You just have to keep them in the right lane.
Correct.
And that's your job. It's not trying to get them to go faster.
Right.
It's how can you employ them to their
Right.
capabilities.
What can you get out of them at that speed?
Sure. So, and we were talking about there's individuals that come out of school and they're amazing technicians, but they don't know how to tell anybody.
Right.
that
They don't know
they're
how to
good-
make a website.
Right.
They don't know how to answer social media. And that's like, when you're a business of one or two, you got to wear 14 hats if you want to be successful.
Well, you got to know where to find the hats to even
Yes.
wear them.
Yeah, you got to, because like we were kind of talking, like what do you think, buddy? Every time you go online, you're going to see ads like, oh, download our app and we'll solve your business problem and do this and this problem will be solved. And it's not that way, right? That's
No.
not real. So it's hard for people to do. Get down. Come on, pal. It's hard for people to do. And I think the most successful people are the ones it's all sliders, right? So it's like, all right, I have to have a little bit more personality slider to make this work. And the ones that like kind of don't are the ones that like are reliant on a locator or reliant on a sign being out, and then they express frustration. You're like, well, I'm not getting a lot of calls. Well, I mean, I'm amazing. I used to fix airplanes, and you're like, well, yeah, you're missing like this one component. You're missing the marketing. You're missing the people component. Like you could be like the best technician or inspector in the world. And if you like suck to talk to on the phone, honestly, our sales increased. As gregarious as I am, our sales increased when we put Elizabeth on the phone because she's amazing talking to people. Everybody likes talking to her. Whereas like when they were calling me, I might be in the middle of inspection and I'm grumpy.
Sure.
And I'm like, hey, I don't really have time to talk to you right now. But Elizabeth wakes up and is delightful. She's a ray of sunshine. And like having that partner or just that ability in your life can really make or break your business. Makes
Well,
a
I can,
huge
yeah, I
difference.
can tell you that having Cassandra with me is huge.
Yeah.
Because, and especially for individuals, I mean, I've had gentlemen call me like, well, I wouldn't even get an inspection if it wasn't for my wife. She wants an inspection. Okay, that's great. You should get one anyway.
You should get one.
But with Cassandra with me, she can give her that woman's perspective, and women just see things different. They just do.
It's not a knock. They just see the world differently.
And I don't mean that that's a very positive thing
Yes.
For us in the inspection space, because we're looking at appliances, components. Does this work? We're on this
Is
very
it within a range?
right. We're on this very rigid linear space. She's not.
Right.
Right, and she's not looking at it like that. She's looking at like, well, if I look at this, is this flat? How does this feel? Kind of like what you looked at for water damage the other day. You posted about it. Like those are things that she would see without the flashlight, right? And it's just been great for us, and definitely a multiplier for the business. I think a big part of what we were just talking about with technicians is the fear of rejection. Right. So putting time, effort, and energy into something, whether that be an ad, whether that be talking to people, or even going into an RV park office and saying, hey, this is who I am. There's the fear of rejection, and I can't fail if I don't do it.
Right.
Right. And I was very successful as a recruiter before I stayed on the duties, when I was actually like the little guy on the totem pole talking to people, and people used to say, hey, how did you do this, or what are you doing? And I said, well, I've had more people tell me no than you.
Yeah.
Period. That is it.
Right.
I wasn't afraid to have somebody tell me no, because every no is closer to a yes. Just is. No matter how you cut it or who you are.
Right. Yeah. It's just like we used to in the police biz. The phrase is, you're gonna meet no people, right? Eventually, and like the no's for us are very serious, right? Because it's like, hey, you're under arrest.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, that changes the conversation.
And it's like, well, hang on, wait a minute, buddy. Like, can I de-escalate this and talk you into these handcuffs, or like in that, like, do I have to hit you?
Sure.
Are you gonna get tased today? But like one of the most important things you can do in those, like in that training, we called it de-escalation, is figure out what the objection is, right? And then overcome it. Elizabeth, we have found, this is a free tip for everybody out there, that, and we didn't realize this, I had never done it in my inspection phone calls. She figured out that when we're talking to clients, my focus had always been like, hey, this is what I inspect, and this is how long it takes, and this is why I'm so great. She started to interject, well, when you're all done, you get to have a one-on-one phone conversation or an online conversation with Mike. Well, he'll explain everything to you, answer any questions. And for me, that was always implied. Stop trying to jump on our guests. But she figured out, well, if I really harp on that, that speaks to that need, right? That speaks to, like, hey, okay, I understand you're going to tell me what's going on, but now this is going to help me feel better about what I'm doing.
Yeah, and what good is a report if they don't know how to handle it?
Exactly.
Or what's, again, we're very rigid with this is acceptable, fair, poor, this is a life safety, this is major, this is minor. What does that really mean to them, and what should be important? What can a dealer fix? What do they have to talk to the manufacturer about?
And typically it takes me about 30 minutes after, like sometimes we do it in person, if we have time. Other times we'll do it on the phone or, by Skype or something. And, but like, that's what they want. Like, yes, do they literally want a report so they can give it to a dealership? 100%. I'm just going to let you hang out, dude. So do they literally want that? Yes. But what makes them feel better is the conversation. They're talking to you. And like, we kind of figured that out. And like, Elizabeth started to do it. And I was like, oh, that's silly. What are you doing? And then she's like, no, I think this makes a difference. And she was 100% right. And I was like, oh. And that's kind of the thing, like, without making a political statement, our 47th president talks about how when he gives speeches, he likes to weave, right? And hey, take it easy, buddy. It's just children playing outside. You're fine. And like that's kind of like being a business owner is like the weave, reacting to changing situations and new things. There was yesterday some other rival, and they're not the only one, some other rival RV inspector group is on its way up. And I don't know anything about it, but I'm like, I want to talk to you.
Sure.
I would love to talk to you, not in a biased way, because the situation is evolving. Ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Let's talk about it and figure out. Maybe your product is better. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with mine, but let's talk about it.
Well, and you got to be open to that.
You have to be open to it.
And I used to use the term. We used to talk about, don't. This sounds kind of weird, but it was, don't get caught up drinking your own bathwater. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's simply if you're not open to what's going on in the market, what's going on in the space,
you're going to get burned.
Right. Well, you're going to be behind the curve.
Well, so like in talking to dealers, I bet you've had the same experience, like dealerships when we talk about this stuff. And the one we were at the other day together for different inspections, they are the ones who hit the nail on the head for me. They were like, hey, there's a difference between you guys and the camper enthusiast who says they're an inspector. Somebody who doesn't really have the technician side, doesn't really have the business side figure out. They're like, they're the ones that create the problem for us, not the guys that are like, that have, the guys and girls that have some technician sense, some business sense. They haven't figured it out yet. Let me see if I stop praising him for a second. So we normally, normally he like loses his mind when he hears the kids playing, and he will settle down if Elizabeth is here. She's not here. So I think moving forward, I'm gonna have to be like, hey, like even when I'm talking to another technician, you have to be here to manage him. And what we're trying to do is desensitize him. That's why we put the treats on the floor and
make it a more positive experience. Sure.
Yeah, so he's not freaking out. I'm like, all right, well, let's see if we can get him to lay down for a minute. Anyway, I think we were talking about like how dealers have a preference for like people that are technicians, and they can communicate.
Sure. I think in my experience with individuals that maybe are a little more rigid or standoffish, it really comes down to confidence.
Yeah.
With them, one of the easiest ways to be comfortable when you don't have that confidence is to put your guard up, and that can absolutely come off as being an agitator or
That's
being
not
very
the word.
standoffish.
I heard you hit that hard A, and I was like, oh.
No. Those are two different things to me, right? So, just having very defensive responses.
So yeah, we used to in the guys. If you're listening to this, we're having a dog related issue. This is our hardest one we've ever done, but. We used to call it a false bravado in the police department business, where cops that didn't have confidence would go on a scene with their chest puffed out, and they would make things 10 times worse than they were. Whereas dudes that have been doing it for a while and have fought the PCP guy before, most of the time they show up and they're like, hey, man, it doesn't have to be this way. And like even now, like you go to dealers and it's like, how about them Cowboys, right? You're just a guy and you're chatting.
Sure.
It's not a...
Well, you're not there to... Ideally, you'd have no problems, right? The coach is going to be perfect. And you're not there to have a poor interaction with the dealership, because that can also get transferred to the client. And that's definitely not something you want to do, is make it any harder for the client to move forward with their RV, because... and I can't remember if it was the last podcast we did on mute or this one. People catch a lot of feelings about that stuff, and especially dealerships, because when you go there and you say, hey, there's all these deficiencies, well, they had the expectation that they had taken care of things properly. And if they really care and they're invested, they want to present a great coach. Right. And the last thing they want is probably their client or their prospect buyer to think or feel like they were trying to get one over on them, or in some way they aren't able to give them the product that they promised.
Right. I had one a while ago where it was a used fifth wheel, and it was known there'd been a plumbing leak in the basement.
Okay.
And the dealer was like, before we even talk about, let's replace this. And the dealer found it, disclosed it, was like, we're going to fix it. And so they wanted to wait till inspection till that was done so I could evaluate the work. Sweet.
Totally reasonable.
They called me. They're like, hey, the work's done. Will you come and do the inspection? Sweet. Yeah, I'm on my way up. So anyway, I go do the inspection. I'm John with the salesman. We walk up. I open the wet bay, and obviously no work has been done. And he goes and checks the VIN number to make sure it's the same one. And he's like, I have a completed work order.
Sure.
And he's like, the sales or the service manager told me it was finished. And I'm like, hey, listen, it's not a big deal. I was like, well, I'll call the client. I'll let him know there's been a miscommunication. I'm not torqued out of shape.
Yeah.
You're not torqued out of shape. Clearly there was a miscue here. They're going to be frustrated, but it's not your fault. It's not my fault. It's probably not even the service manager's fault because someone told him
right.
the work was done.
And they didn't inspect.
And exactly. And that's the thing, like in the dealer space, my experience has been most of the time there's not actually malice. And so people will ask me like, oh, do you think the dealer's done their pre-delivery inspection? And it's like, maybe they have, but they haven't fixed anything yet. Maybe they haven't. I don't know. All I know is that if you fix these things that I found, your RV will have few to no deficiencies. And when you tell the dealer that's how you operate, they're thrilled to death with it. And even like for us, I have to communicate to dealerships all the time, like, hey, it's in my interest to advertise inspections as a way to avoid drama. I want you to know that's not how I do business with you, right? Like we have to find these things and disclose them to the client, but it is not my intent to make you as a dealership employee or even the dealership look bad. Like if they want to buy this RV, like they want to buy it bad enough that they've hired me to come in here and look at it. They want to give you potentially $200,000
Or more.
or more. The one I did yesterday was more. I did a G4100 yesterday, and those things are big, triple axle.
Oh, those are not cheap.
And it was $222,000 was MSRP.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, cool. They all want it. Let's figure out how to do it. If I
Yeah.
find X, Y, and Z, you guys figure out how to overcome that objection. My job is not to like make it harder for you. And
Right.
the dealerships, I've even made a mistake before and had to call the dealer and be like, hey, just so you know, I found a mistake in my report. I fat fingered something. I'm going to call the client right now, but I want you to know first before you get the objection. Hey, client, I made a mistake. I'm going to give you an updated report. Don't light your hair on fire about it.
Sure.
Right? And, dude, they were so, like, he said to me on the phone, he's like, you know this is a mistake? I'm like, it was a mistake. It's mine. I own it. That goes so far with...
Yeah. Well, those are those little things in
It's the intangibles.
in relation. Yeah. Well, that's right. That's right. And even people that say, "Oh, that's a tangible thing." No, it's not. There's no such thing as a tangible need or a
Right.
tangible. It's just
Exactly. And that's the that's kind of our, to give you kind of like an insight, like, you know, my whole like reason for being, aside from feeding my dog spray cheese right now, my whole reason for being, come here, buddy, come here, let's
down.
get the spray cheese.
you're getting cheese. Holy cow! Right over there's your cheese.
Come on, get your cheese. And come here, buddy, come down, get your cheese. Come over here, come here, or just stay there and get pet. So my whole original reason for being was like, hey, I want people to be aware that the RV inspection service exists. That was like Cozy Camper step one. And I feel like I'm reaching a place now where I've probably, obviously the work is not done. He really likes you, dude.
Yeah. Well,
He's a big fan.
animals love me. They know the good people.
So but like kind of my next crusade is now it's time to raise the bar on the inspector.
Okay.
Like a lot of people know that inspections exist, and that's like RV Help is coming in to spread that message. There's other people now that are helping me spread the message, so I feel not as alone. But now it's like I'm kind of like, hey, when people are good inspectors that run good businesses and they make the rest of the association look good, like, okay, I want to talk to them because they're doing everyone a service
Yes.
versus the sort of folks that I'm talking about. Some of them may even be capable of really doing well, but they don't know that what they're doing is harmful. They don't know
Right.
that when they're presenting that kind of thing is harmful to...
Well, you can't see the forest past the tree, right?
Yeah. One of the dealers in town was telling me that like an inspector, actually no, I shouldn't quote it because he was legitimately inspector, but it sounded like he was there like on a walkthrough, was
Okay.
making a bunch of, which I do custom walkthroughs for people. It's not a big deal. But like they were making a bunch of statements like that weren't within the scope of inspection and were totally subjective. Like, hey, you should have the dealer add whatever fluid to the hydraulic thing, like to avoid pops and stuff. Like that's not in the scope, and that's subjective. Like you can like if you ask me, I'll be
Sure.
like, yeah, there is an additive you can add. It is supposed to make the tank not pop when the things are in motion. Or like, hey, do you like AGM or lithium batteries? Well, here's the pros and cons for both.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't make the statement you should make the dealer give you lithium batteries. And it sounds like that's what the
I
conversation
gotcha.
was.
Sure.
And that's a way, like, you're gonna burn that bridge forever, dude. And even
Well, with everybody,
yes,
because now you've given the client some type of expectation, like, oh, well, if they're saying that, that's a thing that should be implied, and you've created this
you've created a whole
situation
drama.
between them and the dealer, completely unnecessarily.
And that's like I feel like, with like we were talking earlier, like with technician stuff, it's kind of like really straightforward, right? It's like, hey, I go somewhere, I identify a problem, I either have the part or I don't. I source the part, I put the part in, and the problem has gone away.
Mm-hmm.
There's really not a huge amount of variation on that, right?
No,
Like there's
it's
ways
pretty
you can,
straightforward.
there's ways you can do better, and you can get in the minutia of like, what do I keep on my truck, and and you can streamline like your billing and stuff like that. The inspection thing is like the Wild West, and there's like not a lot of there's really not a lot of guidance
Mm-hmm.
and training on that side of things.
Yeah, the inspection route's more creating an experience
Mm-hmm.
for the client,
And it's not well defined.
No,
It's not well
no,
defined.
no, and it needs to be. It's different for different needs and different people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not just this. This is how it goes. This is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be able to pivot.
Yeah.
And
So
like you said, weave.
yeah, you got to weave, man. Because some people have called and they're like a nervous wreck, and they want to know everything about. They want to know every serial number because they want to do the math and figure out how much amps they need.
Sure.
Like how many amps they're going to draw on their inverter when they're boondocking at 6 o'clock on a Thursday night and it's partly
Yeah.
cloudy.
72 degrees outside.
They want to know that.
Sure.
And other people are like, hey, I'm hiring 5 inspectors to look at 5 coaches across the country. I'm going to pick the best one of the 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, sweet. And it's like, it's way more emotional. We were talking before we recorded either podcast that there's like a lot more emotion in the inspection space than there is in in the repair space. There's a lot of frustration because you're hot,
Sure.
right, or your toilet doesn't work or whatever
Sure.
it is, and which is a frustration, but it's not the same as inspection.
No.
And also like, cause even within like, if you compare us to like home inspector space, that's very well defined, right? Like you're buying
Yes.
a house,
Mm-hmm.
the inspector's going to come in, he's going to make a list, you're going to negotiate. Some stuff you have no choice but to fix. The rest you're going
Oh, yeah.
to, you're either going to fix or negotiate, right?
Actually, speaking about that, I've actually had clients that tell me, well, I'm getting financing and my finance company is requiring
Yeah.
an inspection, much like a home.
That's
And I've also had people say, hey, Tom, I didn't spend half that, what you're asking for on a home. I said, well, does the home bump into other homes?
Does the
Right.
walls move, right? Like,
Right, like-
are there 3 different electrical systems?
How
Like,
fast did that house go
Right.
down the highway when
How many hurricanes has it been in this week?
right this week? Sure.
And so yeah, that's like, so kind of like, what I'm trying to do is, or what I want to do, or want to see happen is, I want to define it. I want to define what this thing is supposed to be, or help define it, so that like we can at least understand, at least if we can identify like the 3 or 4 flavors that inspections take, right? Is it emotional? Is it fact finding? And then we can have that conversation about how to present it. I think we're getting pretty close when like we offer the what is it, the consultation at the end. I think we're pretty close. And like what I'm finding now that we've kind of got all this business stuff figured out is like, I'm like, hey, I'm trying to decide what is, because I know what the standards of practice say, and I do that, but like what is actually important for me to find on an inspection report and report it to like other people, right? So like obviously like gaps and sealant on the roof, that's important.
Sure.
'Cause,
Oh, yeah.
because water's going to come in, right? But it's like what would be a good example? It's like the fridge was not left on long enough to get to temperature. Do I need to report it? Yes. Is it a big deal? Probably not, right? Like let the dealership just show you that it works.
Sure. Well, we
after I
ran
come
into
in.
that the other day, both of us, right?
Oh,
We
the air
couldn't do it. We
conditioners.
couldn't do a delta T on the air conditioners because it's like 42 degrees outside.
They're
So-
not going to work right.
No, we can't even set the air conditioner that low.
Yes. And I
To
had
make it
I had
work.
the heat burning in mine
Oh,
trying
yeah,
to
we
get
were-
the temperature up.
Yeah, we were definitely
And
enjoying that.
I was trying to make that happen. Jeez, buddy. Come on. You're fine. Take it easy. But like that's what I'm trying to figure out now is how to do that, or maybe if like we've always talked about Premier and essential inspections, like, and I've always done Premier most of the time. I do have an essential inspection that I offer, but
I don't anymore. I can't offer the essential inspection because I find myself doing a Premier
anyway.
anyway, right? Like it's like, okay, well, I identified this. I can't not go the step further. You're all tangled up here.
Talk about emotional needs. There you go. Be comfy. So,
It's like, I just want a microphone.
so the we will offer it if someone's price conscious, but then we have to be super clear about like what it doesn't entail, and then often they go back. So they'll be like, "Oh no, in that case, I just want you to do the whole thing." And you're
Right.
like, well, yeah, I agree that that's the better product, but is that all you wanted? Was for Tom to pet you?
See, we need those good lovin's.
But the reason, like, I'm really motivated right now is, like, we were talking about the other day when we were both on the inspection site, is we have the new locator, you got RV Help. And we were like, all right, well, people that have built a business are going to naturally rise to the top of that locator because they've harvested reviews, they have good presence. They're going to rise to the top. And, like, some people are frustrated, not unreasonably, because they're like, before I used to be number 1 in San Antonio, and now I'm number 5 because I'm like 4 people back because of reviews. And it's like, well, you weren't really number 1 before. You just
No.
thought you were.
Well, you just got your pin there before the other guy. That's really what it came
That's all
down
it
to
was.
on the on those NRVIA and NRVTAA sites was who was the quickest to
get
put in
their
an
pin
address,
somewhere, or who had
right?
been there longer,
Or
right?
who had
Like,
been there
yeah.
longer, yeah.
And it was like, and so like at this point, I'm seeing everything they're putting down. And I'm like, no, what they're talking about is like way better. They want to harvest reviews, and I admit that it's not perfect, but I'm like, oh, like this is a professional business organization that is trying to professionalize the way that our search results are found.
We're just buddies.
Yeah, no, he's the podcast dog, dude, and he really likes you.
yeah.
We're working on his traumatization.
Well, that's okay.
But we should just always have him do that when we're doing podcasts. But like I don't. Okay.
Oh, you're
well,
coming
hang
right
on,
up?
Hang on. All right. That's enough, pal. But like what I don't get is like when you're in the Marines. Did you ever screw up
Oh, sure.
and some sergeant would come chew your behind out over it?
Sure.
Yeah. Like when I was a cop, like I just shaved my beard off and like I wasn't gonna shave this morning, and I looked in the mirror and I could like hear some lieutenant being like, "Murray, have a shave. You look
Sure.
like garbage." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Let's be open to feedback." And what I think is occurring or has occurred is like, hey, the way that we've always done business in the RV inspection space has been this, and now I'm angry about it because somebody moved my cheese. And it's like, well, no,
That
dude.
was a good book.
Yeah, it was a good book. Required reading. My old chief of police was like he was a colonel in the Army. So I think half of the leadership training I got was lifted straight out of the Army NCO manual. But one of those books is required reading for both. And so it's like, I guess my thought though is always like, well, what are RV inspections going to look like 5 years from now? Right?
Okay.
Like, what is the industry going to look like 5 years from now or 10 years from now? 5 years from now, the NRVIA will not be the only RV inspection outfit that's out there.
Let's not now.
Right. It's not right now. They're the biggest,
Sure.
but they're not the only one. And like this podcast will not be the only one that talks about this stuff. You will not be the only one in Port St. Lucie, Florida. I will not be the one. Like, and so for me, it's like, all right, I see an entity like RV Help come in, and I'm like, oh, well, this is a company that has financial incentive to make as much money as is humanly possible,
Sure.
like any business.
Like any business.
And their survival is ours. So
Yes.
while I want to give them feedback, I also want to be like, hey guys, like if you can make, maybe next year, this is not real, but maybe next year they run a Super Bowl ad. And it's like,
Oh,
hey,
that's
this
expensive.
is, it is, but like whatever the equivalent is in our space, maybe they
Sure.
have, they sponsor the whole Quartzite show or something. And then everyone who goes there and doesn't know, or Josh the RV nerd gets bought by them or something,
Right.
right? And it's like, if they can put eyeballs on 50, 500 different practitioners, that's huge for us.
Sure.
So I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt is what I'm trying to say. And all of this to say that like the way you operate your business is a little different than the way that I operate mine, and is different than the next guy's. But like there are some common factors, customer service being one of them, probably before even technical skill. Because like you can be like a second rate, like I say it all the time, I'm definitely not the best inspector that there is, but I'm really good at marketing, right?
Okay.
Like in your spot, like you may not be the best technician in San Antonio, but in your little niche you are the best at marketing.
Sure.
You have marketed yourself very well in that space. And I think that that's the conversation that we have to be having in like our little niche, is like, how do you professionalize yourself? How do you make it better? What, aside from the dog, aside from like, what have you done to like market your business besides kind of what you described about being in the base?
Well, Google Ads, right, for one. We did try the Facebook and the Instagram stuff, but that didn't really take off. I think a lot of it's just been exposure. So, and what I mean by that is, okay, I'm going to do a roof.
They see your truck.
Right. I'm going to order my sealant from a place where I get it at cost, but I'm going to go drive to, say, Blue Compass and go in and buy a tube of self-leveling sealant and take as long as I need to while my truck's in the parking lot.
Yep.
To do that. Period.
Right.
Right?
I buy from Camping World all the time, and people, because they have the wholesale program.
Sure.
And I hate to do it, but I do it. And but like I get leads all the time. Hey, I saw your truck in the parking lot.
Saw your truck. Yep.
I saw somebody called me the other day because they saw my truck at the dealership we were at, and that's huge. And like having a professional looking truck, dude. This is the crazy thing. You wear a polo shirt when you work?
Yes.
Right? I wear a button-down shirt when I work.
Yes.
I saw an inspector once. He had on like cut off like short sleeve shirt
Sure.
and like torn blue jeans, and he was doing an inspection. And I
I've
was like,
seen some wild vehicles too.
Yeah.
I've seen some wild.
and you're like, my guy, I'm not saying you got to go out and buy a Lamborghini. I'm not saying you got to wear a tuxedo. I am saying that you have to not look like a goofball.
Yes.
Speaking of goofballs, you want some cheese? Let's get
More
the cheese. Come here.
More cheese.
More cheese. Come here. Get the cheese. No more cheese? Come here. You want the cheese right here? No. But that goes such a long, and I guess what I don't know is like, why do we have to have that conversation as like adults?
Well, I think you don't know what you don't know, and people come from different walks of life. People had different careers before they were a technician, or maybe not, and maybe they grew up in a place or in a lifestyle where that's just normal,
Right.
right?
And if you're
there's
in a
nothing wrong-
shop, if you're in a shop environment where it's not public facing, I can understand it a little better.
Sure.
The podcaster, the listeners are gonna like love how many times they see the dog. Like I can understand it, like, cause like you're not public facing, you're working in a shop environment. But if you hire somebody to come to your home and fix your buddy, come on, to fix your furnace, you don't really want the guy that's like all tore up. You want a dude that's got on like a polo shirt. And looks clean. And even if they're a little dirty because they've come from another service call, you can kind of forgive that. But if they come in a professional truck and
I keep clothes. I actually keep clothes in my truck. I keep a nail brush.
yeah, in the summer I keep an extra shirt in my truck because I'm going to sweat through them.
Well, I wear the polos for inspections, and then I wear branded
T-shirt?
T-shirts for
Totally fine.
technical work. Right?
As long as they're clean and presentable. And
Well, I think it comes down to maybe they're not thinking about that. And that goes back to what we just said. Okay, so we maybe are a little better at marketing because we're thinking about presentation, branding, consistency, and if your head's not there, it's not going to be a consideration.
right. If you're all technician and no market, it's the sliders that we
Sure.
talked about. It's going to be harder for you to do that. And it is possible to like be the guy that can like look at an RV and know what's wrong with it, like sight unseen. and there's a space for it. Like there's a guy in town here. I'm not gonna say his name, but like if there's something I can't handle and I don't want anyone else to do it, I'll summon him. But dude, like he is a sight to behold.
Oh, yeah?
And but like, and I tell people, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're gonna call this dude, he's not gonna call you back for 3 or 4 days, and he's gonna cost a lot of money. But he knows every single thing about these RVs. He will unbuild your RV while you watch. He's like a miracle worker. Good boy. And the dog, not the
Oh,
technician.
okay, yeah.
And but like most of the time, because like you mentioned your social media, and I think you guys do a great job on your social media. Not everyone has to go the influencer route like we do, but like you guys do a great job. It's just your portfolio. Like this is our portfolio. This is what we do. And like I see you post like all the time. Like, hey, today I'm cleaning an air conditioner. Today I'm installing a furnace. Like that's it.
That's it.
That's it. You're good. You don't have to like try and be like me or Steve or Emily trying to like post every day. That's not a realistic.
Well, I'm not you or Steve or Emily.
Right.
I have my own
Get your own thing.
scope, capabilities. People are not built the same.
No, and it's not like, I have no fear of the camera. I don't mind going in front of it. We're on a podcast now, and I have the technical skill to actually edit the stuff and make it look professional. Not everybody does, and that's okay. So I don't want somebody to listen to this and think like, oh, like they're advocating to do like what Mike does, like with all this video. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we had a joke in the PD when we teach people how to not get their bike stolen. You don't have to make your bike the hardest to get stolen. You just have to make it harder than your neighbor.
That's
So-
like I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun my friend.
I just have to outrun you. And so, like, if you're trying to open this business, like you guys, and that's the whole point that I was trying to make is, like, you guys came in and I was like, their website's really good. It's optimized for San Antonio. Their locator profile looks good, and they're active on social media. Those are, like, the few things that you can do to really stand out. And then, like, those people are the ones, like, you've got your wife. I have never called you for service, but I bet if you do, it's a professional sounding front of the house. And that goes so far. And like we were kind of saying in one of our podcasts today, people just don't answer the phone.
No, I hear all the time. They say, "Oh, hello." I'm like,
Hey man, what's
yeah.
if you are going to spend your money on marketing on nothing else, if you don't have a helper, hire a phone answering service.
Sure, absolutely. No, they tell me like, "Oh, you're the first person to answer the phone," or "Oh, thanks for calling me back. I've been trying to get a hold of somebody for days."
Right.
Well, and then I hear technicians complain about not having work.
Why aren't you answering
Answer the phone, right? Answer the phone.
You're on the same locator I am. You're on the same Google search that I am. Like what? And it's for some reason it's Houston. I don't know what it is for you. I don't know what happens in Houston. I get it out of Houston all the time. Like, hey, I called 15 inspectors in Houston. Nobody answered. We had somebody call us the other day, and I was like, it was on the far side of Houston, like almost Louisiana.
Oh,
And
wow.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, we can go there. Like it's gonna cost a lot for us
Sure.
to go there. Like, but he's like, yeah, I've called everyone basically from Louisiana. And then he said I started in Austin, which is how he caught us. And that's the number. Like that's the headline. Is we were joking today. Like if we ever had training for like inspectors and technicians, slide number 1 is answer the damn phone, call the damn leads.
That's actually not a bad idea to start. Is some type of just basic business.
Yeah.
Training for technicians or inspectors that just because you don't know what you don't know.
Right. It'd be crazy if somebody was already working on that.
That's nuts.
That'd be crazy. It'd be crazy if there was a schedule right on this laptop. Yeah, that's it. And like y'all are someone that I perceive to be doing well. I think y'all are going to do pretty well down there. And what I
Well,
think
I'd hope so. Already getting some calls.
We already booked
inspections
somebody
and
in
tech work,
Wisconsin.
so, oh, that's great.
And I knew that you would, but like somebody was talking to me the other day down here, and they were like, "Oh, I don't get any calls for inspections at all," and they were like, "We keep lowering our price, and we're still not getting any hits."
Well, if you're not able to tell somebody your price, it doesn't matter
They
what
don't.
it is.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, well, like with just y'all are doing what you need to do. Like I spend a huge amount of time doing video editing and stuff. Y'all don't.
Oh no.
No, y'all
No.
don't. And I would bet that if we went pound for pound, I bet that y'all are doing more calls than we are right now. And And because, like I said, we mostly do inspections now. And so all that to say, it's like, well, guys, you have to figure out the marketing. If you're 15th down the row on the locator, sucks,
Yeah,
but you're 15th.
You need to go somewhere else to be seen.
Right, and that's the other thing too, is like, hey man, if you're coming to Austin, San Antonio, there's a lot of people here.
There are.
There's a lot of
There's
people
a lot
here.
of options.
And, you know, maybe you need to, like the people that work in Vermont, Michigan, Wisconsin, you know, those guys, because the Colorado, the season is short.
Yes.
And it's intense. So it's like maybe you need to move towards making kind of your living up there. And then you go and do whatever else you're going to do. Like we talked about it being seasonal. I think what I hate to see happen is people give up without, like, they're like, oh, it's just not worth my time. Well, no, you haven't figured it out.
Yeah.
You know? And my hope is, honestly, with some of these inspections, that we can maybe move towards like a internship phase where it's like, hey, you get out of school, you come work for On the Go, or you come work for Cozy Camper, and I teach you about inspections, and then maybe you work for me for a little bit. And then if you decide that you want to go off on your own, you can, but you're going to be better for it because I trained you or you trained them.
Well, not only that, but you're an established business that's getting the inspection calls.
Right.
It does a person, you're not getting any experience
Right.
by not doing the service.
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to people being humble enough to take advantage of something like that.
And that's a problem too, is like, and hear me out. I'm a couple years younger than you.
I know. I was asked if I was your father
That was
walking
bad,
up
dude.
here by the young lady
She's
next
so
door.
nice, but
Sweet little girl,
yeah,
but
she's like
yeah,
6.
that took me back a little bit.
You're not that much older than me, dude. I'm almost 40. But I am like the youngest, one of the youngest. I'm certainly the youngest prolific inspector. There are other inspectors that are out there that are younger than me, but not many. And that's kind of a problem too, is that like a lot of our peers are in a season of life where confidence is not an issue, maybe where it's not deserved. And, you know, like in this space, like you can be
Sure.
confident about everything else that you've done, but like you're a brand new guy in this space for the first time. Like maybe you worked at Lockheed Martin for 40 years.
Yeah.
And you were awesome, incredible at Lockheed Martin, but you're brand new to the
Sure.
RV industry.
We talked about that with the vets.
Yes.
You know, you were the man.
Yeah.
I mean, you were the battalion sergeant
Yeah.
major. You were a colonel, and you had, you know, thousands of soldiers, airmen, sailors,
Right.
Marines that
Under your
work for
command.
you. That's not the
It's not the
case
same.
anymore. And you know what? Nobody knows. And I hate to say it, very few people even know it. Very few people would care because they have no idea.
They don't know what it means.
What that means. So to walk in expecting the same amount of
Gravitas.
respect,
Yeah.
gravitas, or just station. You are not doing yourself a service.
No. Do you do a lot of, because you mentioned working on the base, there's no, your business name is not like military. You're not like, you know, you're not like Marine Corps Division, you know, 1st Marine Division,
No,
like RV repair.
I am not someone that really puts that out there.
Yeah.
Because that's, they say once a Marine, always a Marine, and I believe that.
Sure.
But that doesn't carry much now because I'm not doing that.
Right.
Right, and that's great. I was always that. I'm proud of my service.
Yeah.
My family's proud
Well,
of my
you should
service,
be.
and that's awesome. But if I live my life that way, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to experience anything else.
No, there's
Right?
and the reason I ask is somebody asked me, so in this business it's a lot of retired, it's a lot of vets and retired firemen and cops that come out.
Yep, met a lot. Yep.
And you know, and that's fine, but they name their business like Blue Line RV Inspections. You know, they'll have like the fire
I've
department
got
logo.
I've seen Devil Dog,
Right.
RV, like all,
And-
all sorts of stuff.
And it's like, well, okay, let's use Blue Line for an example. I'm a cop, right? I have the Blue Line sticker on my license plate. But that is the only place in any of my business like that you see it. I have a little tiny thing that says if you're a veteran or first responder, I'll give you a discount. But like, that's not the identity of our business.
Sure.
And honestly, like if let's say I named my business like 50 RV Inspections, or I made some joke about being a detective or something.
Sure.
Not everybody likes the police. And if
Nope.
you name your business, if you name your business after the fire department, maybe their family was hurt in a fire.
Yep.
Or they, you know, whatever happened, or maybe, you know, maybe they're against the war. And so they don't like the Marine Corps.
Yep.
And so the reason I bring it up is like you can support veterans and first responders and all these other things without making it the whole identity of your business, and then you come out and then you're like, dude, there was a food truck the other day I saw. It was like, I mean, literally, it was named like First Marine Battalion Barbecue, and like it had like the insignia and stuff on it, and I was like, I don't know, does that make your barbecue good? I was like,
it's well, so and you find this. I've found this more often than not with Marines. We were taught to celebrate ourselves
by all means,
so much, and a lot of the I'll just use the word fear because I can't think of another. A lot of the fear that people have, and I don't mean Americans, I mean the way that maybe across the world of American Marines is just simply because of that amount of this is who we are, this is who we do,
right?
Or this is what we do, know us,
right?
Type thing, and that's just carried on. It was part of our indoctrination when we became Marines. My site says veteran owned, and there's 2 American flags there.
Yeah.
And you've seen my truck. I fly the American flag. But the only reason it says that is because my wife said, Tom, this needs to be on your website.
Right. Well, and also you're working in.
Well, and I'm working on
you're
it. Right.
on a base,
but
right?
that's kind of assumed I should be there.
Yeah.
Right. But I also don't want that to be a driving factor or force for someone hiring Cassie and I. I want it to be based on
your skills,
our
knowledge,
skills
and
our
experience.
service and what we provide to a client, right? Can't have it both ways, but
no, it's okay to be celebratory of those things, but you're in a new phase of life now, right? And so like even as we were talking about new business opportunities, I'm like, we can't name it Cozy Camper. I'm like, it's a different, and I actually regret naming our repair business Cozy Camper because our we named Cozy Camper was when we were rentals because we rented small RVs. Cozy Camper. They're small. They're RVs.
that makes perfect sense.
And we made the decision then. We're like, well, we already have these followers. We don't want to like split off. We're not in the repair business, so we'll just take it with us. And I was like, well, that's not really the best name for what we're doing, but we have it.
Seems to work.
I think we're working in spite of it, not because of it. And but like I'm like, if we splinter off something else, it can't be named Cozy Camper. I didn't even want to name the podcast Cozy Camper Podcast, but. It's if you're somebody that's like a career fireman, and all I don't know what they call that, like shamrock looking thing. That's the fire symbol. But I'm like, if that's all you know, and then you try to like, well, are you a fireman or are you an RV tech? Right.
Right.
Well, what are you really? And like, you can have the fireman plates on your car.
Yeah, you can be both.
Yeah, you can do both, but you have to. And I see it come up all the time, like, 'cause you'll see the new businesses come up, and it's like, well, this doesn't really tell me anything about you, right? Like, it is not unique. I would rather your business be named Tom's RV Service, which there is one in Austin, I think. But I would rather that than like. But then if you are going to, I think it's more clever when you find some way to be literally clever about it, like maybe the maybe instead of like a globe and anchor, right? Like maybe it's like a globe and camper, right? Like if you find some way,
that's a great idea.
If you find some way
awesome.
to interpret it and like bring it in there,
Eagle, globe, and camper. I love it.
Sweet, dude. Like go for it. But it's like, I just got. I could say that's a bad idea all day, and it's gonna be like, dude, like, have you met people? So you're a Marine, dude. Like some people, maybe they're in the Navy, hate the Marines. Right, or like some dude in the Army, maybe he didn't get to go in the Marines and he wanted to, and he's mad at the Marines forever. Like I knew cops, like I joke about firemen, right? Because it's a friendly rivalry most of the time. But like, dude, some cops hate firemen, and some firemen hate cops. And it's the same way, like if you make your business political.
Oh yeah.
Right. If you name yourself 47 RV Repair, people that liked 46. Are not going to hire you.
Yeah.
Or even if you are Tom's RV Repair, if you put your political sticker on the back, you're going to alienate half of your client base.
Sure.
And dude, I get it too. I like my political bumper stickers. I have a point of view. Cozy Camper doesn't.
Right. Well, and the flags are even borderline.
These
like
days,
me,
yeah.
But I'm going to fly them because I was lucky enough to accidentally be born here.
Right.
It is what it is.
I'm the same way. It's like, but that's the sort of thing, like, you have to get, when you're talking about your marketing, you have to get so granular. You got to analyze every single thing you say, because for a while, our business was named Cozy Camper RV Inspection and Repair. And then we were like, well, should we be or repair? Because we can't be inspecting and repairing your RV. And we don't want to create the
expectation.
the expectation
Sure.
that we'll do both. And we just changed it to Mobile RV Services, and that solved that problem. Not that it really is a problem, but you have to analyze every minute
Yes.
detail of what you're doing. Elizabeth said for a while, she's like, hey, for the longest time our logo had a typo. Like there was a spacing issue between one of the numbers and like the dash and the phone number. She's like, I don't want to say anything, but every single publication you've made in the last year was wrong.
Oh my God.
And I was like, we even had it on the sign out front, and I was like, well, thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Sure.
I wish that you would have done it. But even like little, I saw someone the other day, and it's difficult when your name Flanders. Let's say their name is Flanders.
Okay.
It's different when your name ends in S, and it's like Flanders RV Inspection, because I don't even know if it's supposed to be like apostrophe S or whatever it is.
Sure.
This group had it wrong.
Okay.
And it was like Flanders RV Repair. And I was like, they have it wrong. They have it not like it's a Christmas card. They are using the wrong S at the end. And I was like, every single, I'm like, that's going to make some people not hire you because you don't have attention to detail.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why I have a Cassie Wample. She's my
Yes.
red line underneath.
Well, dude, I don't know if you know this. Do you know there's another on the go?
In North Carolina.
Yeah.
It's on the go RV Services. We like each other's stuff.
Dude, well, I thought they were you.
Oh,
For
really?
the long, because they were commenting on all our stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, I was like, you guys have a really cool logo. It's like looks
Thanks.
like it's embossed, and they kept liking my stuff, and they're super nice.
Oh, great people. Yeah.
But like
absolutely.
they have, I don't remember if it's like a Bible verse or something as like their profile photo. I don't remember what it is. It's just not a logo on Instagram or something. And hey, buddy, take it easy. You're gonna wreck our guest. But I was like, why don't they have their like their business logo on their Instagram? I'm like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm like, their presentation's really good. And then like a week later, y'all liked something that we posted, and I was like, oh, they did it. And then like a couple days after that, you both did. And I looked at the notifications, and I saw 2, and I was like, oh, I was like, it's a different company.
Different company.
But
yeah.
I noticed that they did worse, and there's other cozy campers out there. There's a cozy camper in like Iceland that does rentals.
That'd be hard to confuse, I think.
There's a cozy camper like somebody does like arts and crafts.
Okay.
And then we have a website right now that's selling knockoff cozy camper RV.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
They have like fake versions of our logos and stuff. They're selling it all. And, like we haven't copyrighted any of it because like, dude, you don't think about this stuff.
No. And you know what? That probably drives traffic for you anyway. So even that they're doing their own thing, that's exposure.
I was thinking when this came up, I was thinking about like Joe Rogan, and there was a problem for a while where AI Joe Rogans were like endorsing products. It was like, it would be like him and Elon Musk talking about something like hire Cozy Camper, and it's Joe Rogan and
Sure.
Elon Musk talking about it. And it went on for like months. And I was like, oh, but it's creating free publicity for Joe Rogan because people are writing articles. No, Joe Rogan did not endorse, XYZ widget. There was an AI voice. And I was like, okay, whatever. Sell our shirts. I don't care.
Right.
If people are like it enough to buy knockoff merchandise, I don't care. What am I, a designer label?
Mm-hmm.
These were problems that like I didn't expect to have. I was very much in the first category when it came out, where I was like, oh, we're just gonna go fix RVs, and I'll make a lot of money, and everything will be happy. But then there's like all these ancillary things come up, like taxes and marketing and
and even suppliers. Like for me, so I'm registered in Florida, right? My business. And I come to Texas and I want to have dealer accounts.
but you're out of Florida.
But I'm out of Florida.
Yeah.
So we can't send anything to Texas without your Texas tax exemption.
You got to get the tax thing.
Okay. And you can't do this without your Texas this or your Texas that. So it could be hard for people to move and utilize the benefits of being a professional.
Right.
to be able to receive, to keep receiving parts, or having dealer accounts, or getting things at a cost that you might be able to pass on some savings to your customer or something like that. You're going to be in the circumstance where you're going to a store and paying retail.
Have y'all looked up into the Florida propane thing since you're going there?
Yes.
So
Very
what-
confusing.
Yeah. What is your best understanding of?
So
there's
I
two-
actually talked about this with someone on Facebook, I think, last night, and I need to call them on Monday because
Who, Florida Propane?
Yeah, I need to call Florida Propane because it's very, very confusing. The way it looks like to me is you need to have a level 5 or a class 5
Is that high or low?
certification. It's like master qualifier.
Uh-huh.
But then I read on that any qualifier has to work for a licensed business,
Right.
so you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
Right, and then of course the licensed business is a dealer account, which
Mm-hmm.
is the highest level
Yeah.
you can have, and we're talking about putting a cap on a propane line to fix a water heater,
Right. And it would seem like that would
or using a quick connect to do a drop test.
it would seem like that would eliminate every solo mobile practitioner in Florida.
How's anybody doing business?
Right. Because it seems like every single person's breaking the law.
And they may be, or they may not. Like,
Right.
it could be a completely wrong interpretation, and a mobile RV technician has some type of exemption, or there's something else out there. It's
Right.
just written, and I found that true with a lot of Florida things. It's written in a way where I have no idea what was just said.
Right. What's the intent? Like that's because I was looking into it too. Because we're probably going to go to Florida just for like a short time coming
Okay.
up for a couple weeks, and I was like, well, if I can work while I'm there,
Sure.
sweet. But then I started looking into that, and I was like, oh, well, it seems like I'm not lawfully able to work there if I want to abide by all of their codes. Hey, buddy, sit down. So the and it came up the other night because in the inspector group they were discussing like, hey, should we just not do propane leak tests anymore until we can figure this out?
Right.
And my first reaction was, no, that's stupid. You have to do the propane
Yeah.
leak test. But I'm like, oh, you guys might be breaking the law if you do a propane leak test. And it's like, if that's the case, then yeah, you can't do the propane leak test, document that you can't do it. But I'm like, the law cannot be written in such a way that,
Right.
because there's a million small practitioners.
Sure.
And in Texas, I don't know if you have your Texas one. I won't ask, but it's like, you have to get like a dealer account.
Oh yeah, no, been through the process.
And, yeah, and then you take a test and you're golden. But like,
It's and I'm just gonna say it. It is a revenue generating. I did the math on it, and they're $1.5 million a year just in recertification money
right,
that the Texas is receiving. That's great. Like, I'm not hitting, a state or an entity from generating revenue, but what are we talking about here? I'm not installing ASME tanks, right?
right. Oh,
I'm not filling them.
And that's kind of like what I was driving at is like we're trying to move to inspections only, and I'm like, okay, whatever. Like all training is good training.
Yes.
All training
I
is good.
100% agree.
Like I'll happily pay to go to propane training, whatever state we're gonna work. I don't mind doing it because I learn something every time. But it's like, is it actually beneficial,
Right.
or are you just trying to make a buck? Or is there, because the Florida RV Association, whatever it's called, is very powerful, and are they trying to squeeze the small practitioners at the expense of that was when I read it, I was like, this looks like only the major shops can have propane
Can have
technicians.
propane technicians, yeah.
And I read it and I was like, this looks like, and I'm not saying that it is, but when I read it, I was like, this seems like an attempt to squeeze the little guy at the behest of larger organizations. And
Well,
so
maybe it's also a way to weed out people that aren't serious and don't have or willing to have I don't want to say legitimate business because they may already have a legitimate business, but one in the eyes of
The state.
the association or the state, right?
Right. And that's the thing is like, even this came up. There was that other inspector that got named by that big dealership chain that was having a hard time, and this came up with them. And I don't know, but the accusation was made in the video, like, oh, you should always hire an inspector that has insurance. And I was like, why do you even have to say that? Like, yes, I mean, they're correct that you should have insurance because all legitimate businesses
All legitimate businesses
should
carry
have insurance.
Yes.
Multiple, like you should have liability. You should have arrows and there's a bunch, and it sucks to pay for it.
Yes.
But
well, it'll suck more if you have to pay
right,
for it.
and I watched it. I was like, is his assertion that they didn't have it, or is he just saying this generally and he's just using this this platform to talk about it? I'm like, he's right. And to your point, like, there's a lot of illegitimate businesses in this space right now that they don't have insurance.
Sure.
There's a guy in Austin right now. He says he's an inspector. He's not. He's actually ranked higher than me. If you Google RV inspectors in Austin, he's not an inspector. And he got run out, I think, Washington State for like fraud.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he brought his business down here. And at one time, I think the AG was looking into him. And here in Texas, I don't know what happened. Then there was another guy whose business, like, he had a lot where he was fixing RVs.
Mm-hmm.
Some state entity came and like put a padlock on the gate. Took months to get all the RVs back to their owners because there was various levels of work in
sure.
there. So to their defense, in Florida especially, I'm sure there's tons of illegitimate businesses that are operating in this space. 2 points. 1, good on them to shag it out. 2, irresponsible to believe that you can just travel the country and operate wherever you want, free and independent of local laws and not pay sales tax, undercut local prices.
Yep.
That is a and some people do it. They burn into town. They're not collecting or charging taxes. They're working for cash. All of this to say that, like, you have to identify more, we'll call them more legitimate businesses.
Okay.
And, like, y'all's is one. Mine is one. Good marketing. Professional appearance. Google reviews. Certificate of insurance available on. We actually have like a packet we give out now to new dealers. Like, hey, this is us.
Yeah, I carry it because you never know when you're going to be asked for it.
You don't know it. And we had previously done it digitally, and we're like, all right, well, here's this form now. So I get it, but like, what basically the reason I'm asking you is nobody seems to have a good handle on this Florida propane thing, because everybody's like, it reads like most people interpret it the way that we're describing. But Florida doesn't seem to think it's a problem.
Yeah, well, my concern is we've had these conversations online, and nobody's come up and said, I've gone through the process and I have it.
Right.
So what's happening?
Because even the voices that I expected to say, like, oh, no, this is it, they said, oh, we think this is it. And it was like the other day, I don't know if you noticed, I was asking about, like, a specific provision in NFPA.
About the neutrals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I recognize it's not good, but I'm like, I want somebody to show me the code.
Sure.
So I can point to it and say, this is why it's not good.
Well, we're in a very unregulated business. I mean,
NFPA is like this long.
Very unregulated business. And like I said, the housing is hugely regulated. Our houses have brakes.
And this is what's going. I think Florida is the first. Eventually, the states are going to begin to regulate what it is that people are doing, and it's not because of businesses like yours or mine.
Right.
Right. It's people that are operating like. People ask me all the time, like, yeah, we do have a inspector and technician certification, but you don't need those to operate a business.
No.
You can just say I'm a technician.
I'm a business. That's right.
You don't need that. Whereas if you're going to be an electrician, there's a number, there's a registry in the state.
I went through an apprenticeship.
Exactly.
I passed these. I'm part of this union or this association.
That straight up does not exist at any level, to my knowledge, anywhere in the United States. Canada has some kind of apprenticeship. I'm not really sure how it works, but in the States, there is no, because even the dealerships, right, which have level 1 and level 2 and level 3 technicians.
From online training.
You can do level 1 to 3 online.
Sure.
And 4, the only requirement is that you did level 1 to 3 online. You worked in a shop for a period of time. So it's like, that's not really good. I think I was joking the other day, it's like Hufflepuff and Gryffindor, right? So like, I think our Gryffindor is better because it's in person.
Well, that's what makes it so disheartening is I was lucky enough to have the VA pay for it, but it's a lot of money.
It's
to
costly.
go get certified, and you take time out of your life, and it's not a short period of time.
Nope.
So you take months if you go through everything.
Yep.
Out of your life to go receive a certification, in-person training, and really learn the ins and outs by a qualified hands-on instructor, and then you go to open a business or do some work, and the state says you're not qualified.
Right.
To do this until you complete X, Y, and Z, or you can prove that you've been doing it a year. Well, if I can't do it,
right? How can I?
How can I show you that I did it a year? Right. So, it wasn't put out or perhaps thought about how someone in our space, is able to actually attain this this type of credential.
Right. What do I actually, what are the steps I need to do, and what are the restrictions I need to observe until this is done? And if it's me, if I'm Florida, like I'll just make a nice infographic and be like, hey, 'cause I would say that like inspectors particularly are more of a thing in Florida than they are anywhere else. There's more inspectors and there's more inspections in Florida than
There's a lot of shows and
the-
big shows.
the big shows are there, right? And they're selling motorhomes by the bucket out there, right? I found out that San Antonio is actually one of the lowest markets for RV sales in the country.
Which is very surprising.
I
to
was
me.
surprised too.
Very
'cause
surprising.
There's a lot of
to me.
wealth. If you go out to like Bernie, there's RVs everywhere.
Oh yeah.
But it's I do feel like that is a, I feel like Florida's propane regulation is like the first real roadblock to this business, and nobody really seems to know what to do with it.
Right.
I'll cut this part and I'll be like, hey, Florida, tell me what to do.
Sure.
I'll tag the Florida RV Association in it. But the, and I think it's important because so many people, they dump out of school, they go straight to Florida. It's just like here, they go straight to Rockport.
There's a lot of technicians in Florida.
There's a million and one technicians down there. And it's like, I feel, because, government fines suck. In Texas, it's a $10,000 fine for your first offense.
Holy cow.
If you're cracking propane lines without a
Credential.
without a credential.
Yeah. Wow.
And like, that's what the book says, whether that actually occurs or not.
Sure.
But like, that's enough.
Oh yeah, that's quite a deterrent.
That's quite a deterrent for me. We were like out of the propane business until we figured that part out. Like, oh no, we're just not going to fix any furnaces. But like in Texas, I think there's only a few states that like actually make you do something.
It's like 9 or 11.
Yeah,
or
it's
something.
not that
It's not
many.
a huge number.
But it's like, hey man, and that's part of the legitimacy of owning a business is like, dude, if the Bible says you got to render unto Caesar, and you better render unto Caesar, otherwise Caesar's going to take what's his.
Well, wouldn't it be amazing if, say, a school like the NRVTAA was an authorized tester?
Training provider.
Training provider,
Yeah.
and you went through the course, and then say you had to do, they love their Saturday classes.
Right.
So say you did a Saturday where you did in-person training underneath the regulations or rules of the state that you're going to. You administered a test in person.
Right.
I mean, you remember the Texas test. I don't know if you did it online, but there's,
they have
show you the room.
Right.
And
They
you sit
have
there.
a guy now on in NRVTA who does the test prep.
Oh, cool.
For that, but it's like, yeah, there's at least, if there were some written guidance that was clear, like, hey, there's 10 states, here are what it means, you have to abide by it. I wonder, as a guy that was a cop, and we worry about liability all day and all night,
Yeah.
to me it feels like a vicarious liability to be like, hey, congrats on being an RV technician. The world's your oyster. And then they go to Florida and catch $10,000 fines because they genuinely didn't know any better. And if you're the school, you could step back and be like, well, it's up to the individual practitioner to make sure they know all these things. But like, it would be doing a great service to all those individual practitioners if you're like, hey, here's updated guidance that comes out periodically. And like,
Or just, this is what you need to do.
right. And then, or like, hey, like if I were there and they were like, hey, because you're there for like 10 weeks if you do everything, right? Like, hey, there's 10 weeks, there's 10 states. You can get certifications in all 10 states if you want, because on Saturday we do X, Y, and Z. Now, there could very well be logistical reasons that they don't. Maybe you can't take the test out of state, or that's part of the problem.
I don't see why not. I would think a state would like to collect their money no matter where you're at.
But it's like maybe there could, I assume, positive intent.
Sure.
It's part of the problem with, our training academy is a for-profit institution. They're a business. They're not a state school where
Right.
It's not like when I went to the police academy, and I don't have an objection to that, but it is critical for the independent practitioner to know that, and that once you're cut loose, you're not really on your own, but you kind of are. There's some structure there, but like, it ultimately does come down to you. So like, I'm glad to hear you say, yeah, I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z, because very few people do.
Well, my concern as a technician and someone, that really wants to make sure that my client has a good service is, if I install something, say it breaks and they have to file a warranty claim. Well, if that manufacturer says who installed it, where are they certified?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh no.
Right. Well, not only I'm not. I mean, of course, it would come back on the technician, but can that person file a claim?
Right.
Can they get what they already paid for taken
I
care of?
guarantee you that even the best insurance in the world, if something happened and you made a claim and they found out you were supposed to be licensed
Mm-hmm.
and you weren't, I guarantee they would separate from you.
Absolutely.
They'd say, "Oh, you weren't you oh, okay. Later," and they
Mm-hmm.
would bail out
Sure.
fast. And that's it doesn't happen a lot. To my knowledge, I don't know that it's ever happened to anyone in our organization. But it could, and it's dangerous. So that's kind of the other thing that I bring up, and you've got we have our wives that do a lot of this, but like we pay a CPA company a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
to do all of our taxes, to handle our bookkeeping, and I joke, keep us out of prison.
Well, that's
Right, like,
that's really what it is.
and
To,
if you're someone who's dealing in like you're gonna burn yourself and everybody around you. All of this to say that um, I think sometimes people like you, and they look at people like us, and maybe there's a degree of jealousy or they don't understand what's going on, and it's like, well, no, they put the work in.
mm,
They put the work in. Like, we're having a high level conversation about propane regulation in Florida.
sure.
Of their 200 listeners, maybe 5 of them are going to be like, oh yeah, that thing in Florida.
In Florida.
I know what's going on with that, or even care.
Sure.
And that's like, but if you're not, you have to be kind of really boring. And like, yeah, I stayed up the other night reading statutory propane laws in a state I don't operate in.
Sure.
That's the name of the game, dude. Like, you've got to do that stuff. If you don't, you're not going to win.
No, well, that goes back to being relevant, right? If you don't know what's going on, you can't.
Or like when people, they go to tech school, which is great, but that's step one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, somebody asked me, because I'm going to the Dometic product training, and I think I actually have my Dometic shirt on today. But it's like they ask, well, what are you going to learn when you go there? I'm like, I don't know, maybe nothing.
Whatever's new.
But maybe they're going to be like, hey, there's a 1 in 1,000. You're going to find this freak thing that happens with one of our refrigerators, and now you're going to know how to fix it. So, like, I see inspectors, they've never gone to any additional training since inspector school. And inspector school used to be even shorter than it is today.
Oh, I can't believe that.
But like, you haven't gone to Dometic, you haven't gone to Lippert, and these things, if you go to training, there's tax benefits to going out of town,
Sure.
go to
Oh, yeah,
training,
yeah.
right? You can write all that.
Absolutely.
You can write your dinners off, take your wife with you. You can do all those things, and it's going to make you better at your job. But they don't do it. But to wrap, I'm trying to get to the end because we're over.
Okay.
We're on the end of our second
Second podcast. Yeah.
podcast. But what would you say is the skill that you developed in the Marine Corps that most directly benefited you today?
Patience.
Patience.
Patience. And the understanding that not everybody's like me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I mean that in a whole lot of ways. So, patience that there are things that are a big deal and there's things that really aren't, right? And being able to separate those and function and act and conduct myself in a way that's appropriate for the situation. You know, you talked about escalation and proportional force, right? Self-control goes a long way.
Yes.
So that was a really easy question to answer.
Yeah, no, and it's what, coming from the PD, you could phrase it as patience, because like you eventually you have to learn that there's some things in your life you can't control and a bunch of stuff you can't.
Mm-hmm.
So like when you work in the PD, you can't control if your new CO is some D-bag captain, right? You can't control if they put you on night shift.
Nope.
You can't control if the department's changing directions. You can't control if the locator gets sold and now RV Help has it.
Right.
So it's like you can't.
No.
Can't do it. And we probably could have had some better communication, but at the end of the day, it was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like all you can control is how you're going to react to this new situation.
That's right.
And you know what? Maybe tomorrow RV Help goes out of business. All you can do is control how you're going to react to that. Florida passes legislation to squeeze RV technicians a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have to move to Alabama.
Right.
You can't control what Florida
No.
does. So working for the government will teach you patience.
Oh my. Yeah.
But
Oh my.
for us, for me, I would agree that was one of the most important skills, and it's like you have to. I call it the geologic timeline. You got to learn to work on a geologic timeline, right? Where you're not really thinking what happens today, what happens this week. I'm more concerned about what's happening a year from now, 5 years from now, what that is like. Obviously, I have to pay some attention to right now, but really the concern is, what does my business look like 5 years from now?
Sure.
Maybe will I even be in this business 5 years from now?
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's something that I think a lot of people need to learn is you got to have patience. You're not going to come out. You're not going to sling 5 inspections a week straight out of the gate. You're not going to be fully stacked on your technician calendar straight out of the gate.
No. Oh no.
It's not going to happen. And honestly, I think there's a lot of value in, like, with that in mind, eating crow, going to work in a dealership for a year. I wish I had done some kind of paid internship. I wish it.
It would have been very valuable, I think. But that goes back to being humble enough to do it, being open enough to do it,
Yeah.
and understanding the future value.
Dude,
right?
isn't it amazing? Like, you can, like, look back on your life and you can think about, like, God, if I would have just if I would have just eaten crow, gotten paid $15 an hour, and gone to work at XYZ dealership for a year, all these things that I had to learn by getting electrocuted on the roof of an RV, I would have been paid by someone else to do and had every Sunday off and not had to worry about my taxes.
Sure.
If I could go back and do it again, 100%, I would have found a dealer to go work for a year. At this point, I don't know if there's a lot of value in it for me. But I was talking to like a young technician. He was like 21, 22 years old. He was working at a dealer, and he was like, yeah, I'm a certified tech, but they're making me wash RVs. And it's like, all right, cool. I hear you, but you're the new guy. So be the new guy.
Be the new guy.
And
Learn how to be the best RV washer.
Yeah. And
you
then
can
guess
be.
what? Once they figure out that you got a brain, it ain't going to take long.
No, competent, capable, and you completed the task to the best of your ability.
Yeah. They're gonna figure it
We'll
out.
move on.
Yeah. So you're gonna be Port St. Lucie,
Port
Florida,
St. Lucie,
starting when?
Florida. I will be arriving, I believe it's the 5th of March.
March. Okay. And your intent is to stay there for
For the foreseeable
For the
future.
foreseeable
yeah, we'll
future.
see. I don't know what life's gonna bring us. I'm not gonna limit myself with
Yeah.
having
you don't
hard
want to put an end date on it.
expectations. Yeah.
At this point. But so, propane service aside, what services do y'all intend to offer in the area?
Pre-purchase inspections, post-purchase inspections, new owner orientation, and technical services as a technician. So, Florida, I expect a lot of air conditioners.
I would expect you'll be doing a lot of air conditioners.
A lot of air
Well,
conditioners and roofs.
Even if you do get clamped down, you can't touch propane. Air conditioners, refrigerators, sealants, slides, leveling systems.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things
Right,
going
and
on
honestly,
the
a
coach.
lot of these they're moving away from propane, especially the motor
Yep.
coaches. So it's not a terminal thing. All this is a
No,
little
no.
hyperbolic that we were chatting earlier, but
I don't
yeah.
expect there's going to be a ton of people that say, Tom, my furnace, it's not working.
not if you're going in March.
Yeah.
By that
can
point,
can you come? We're dying over here.
Even-
It's getting to the low 70s.
yeah, even right now the AC is on in here, right? Or something.
I heard it.
Or is that
Something.
something is on?
Something's on.
And okay, so if people want to find you, where can they do that?
So they can find me on rvhelp.com, or they can visit our website on thegorvpros.com.
Sweet. And then you're on Instagram, Facebook.
I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Same name.
TikToks?
No TikTok. No TikToks. Maybe we'll get there.
Nick from he's that RV tech. He's a big TikTok. He's not an RVTA guy. He's got like 300,000 followers.
Oh, wow.
on
Good for
TikTok.
him.
Yeah, he's really popular. He's a great dude. And he's like, you need to get on TikTok, bro. I'm like, no, I can't. I mean, we have one, but like, I can't.
Sure.
There's something about it where everybody's more angry. and I can't bring myself like YouTube, whatever. But like TikTok, I could be like, I love my wife, and they'd be like, she's the worst, she's cheating on you,
Yeah.
and you're like, why?
Why? Yeah.
Why are you so
Well, there's
angry?
hate anywhere, and haters are great because it's still exposure. But yeah, you find people that cast shade and exist only to pick a fight, and sometimes you don't know where that where their issue lives, and it doesn't really matter. It's if you stay professional.
Right. It's the same thing that
It's
we've
the
been
exact
talking
yeah.
about.
You
is-
treat
is-
them like everybody else.
I used to get snarky in my comments, and I figured somebody left me a bad review once because of it, and then I was like,
yeah, it felt good for you till it didn't.
right, and I was like, all right, I got to take a step back and do that. But that's Tom from On the Go RV Pros. He'll be in Port St. Lucie, Florida. Actually, Nuclear Nomads, they're a content creator couple. They already reached out. They're
Yeah,
like,
they
"We're-"
reached out. They
They're
reached
like,
out
we're
to
in
me.
Port. I'm like, they're the best. Reach out to them. But that's it for today. One thing I want to do, and I'm going to cut this out, and I'm going to put it at the beginning. So this is going to be kind of a warning. Before I do that, thanks for being here, man. I
Oh,
really
thanks for
appreciate it.
inviting me. It's a blast.
But for everybody else, a little note about this podcast. So my dog is going to be in almost every frame of the podcast. I'm going to talk about what's going on. I don't have a lot of control over it, so I'm going to ask for your patience. So this is the most challenging podcast I've ever done. So we skipped recording for 30 minutes, then we got interrupted by the dog. It's probably my fault. I thought I hit the button to turn it on, but I guess I didn't. Maybe you sabotaged it. But with the dog. So, and if you are a dog owner, maybe you can appreciate this. So about 5 years ago, we had a dog sitter who set off the burglar alarm and just let my dog be in a burglar alarm for like hours. And ever since then, he has been terrified of ringtones and bell noises and anything that sounds like an alarm. And what has happened at this RV park is that there's a playground right next door and there's a bell on it. So as soon as he hears a bell or any kind of noise, he loses his mind. And that is what you're seeing here. So the kids were playing outside. We can't hear it with these on, but
No.
he can. And so he's losing his mind here. We were having to pet him. He's trying to jump on Tom's lap. I'm spraying cheese on the floor throughout the podcast because we are working with a dog behaviorist to try and train this out of him, but we're still early in it. So I'm not going to not release it because you're moving away, and I want to have this be out there. But this podcast is a bit of a challenge because of Linus the dog. So, and if you're listening, like we have all the podcast services, Spotify and stuff, you won't see it.
Right.
But the YouTube people will.
Will,
So
yeah.
appreciate your patience. If you have suggestions about what I should do to make my dog not be a maniac, I'd love to hear it. That's it, man. Let's get out of here. Appreciate you being
Awesome.
here.
Thank you.
Whew.